and balance out what's a reasonable inflationary number to support services. So rather than have a 10% increase in valuation and a 10% increase in tax collection, that tax collection, in my opinion, should be lower.
Greenberg, who has served in the state legislature and Fargo City Commission, says an added focus on public safety and these strong rural communities are why he's running for your vote. Voting for the November election is underway in North Dakota. Counties across the state have been sending out absentee ballots. Nearly 160 absentee ballots are being sent to people in over 30 counties. Voters still have time to request an absentee ballot and can review their voter information online. And Hennepin County Sheriff David Hutchinson's peace officer license is being suspended for 30 days. The Minnesota Board of Peace Officer Standards and Training imposed the punishment as a reaction to Hutchinson's drunk driving crash in a county vehicle last December in Alexandria. Hutchinson agreed to the sanction, saying he should be held to a higher standard for his behavior. He's been out on medical leave since May. The suspension will begin in late November. This is Ty Schoenert with The Flag and AM1100theflag.com. First of the news when you need to know.
I'm Kelly Armstrong, candidate for Congress, and I approve this message. Over the last 4 years, I've logged over 80,000 miles traveling our state. We do things right in North Dakota. And everywhere I go, I hear the same thing. North Dakotans want less government and more freedom. That's why in Washington, I fight against the Biden administration's reckless spending, oppose tax increases, and work to keep the federal government out of our lives. And why I'm driven to keep fighting for North Dakota.
Paid for by Armstrong for Congress.
They're on the same team. I'm Lisa Brady, Fox News. For hurricane relief, at least, President Biden and Florida's Republican governor are holding a joint briefing in Fort Myers, one of the areas with the most damage from Hurricane Ian.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says the recovery is well underway.
We've deployed resources that were pre-staged and are now in the field for food, water, and other types of supplies.
President Biden, who got a look at damage from the air, says more will be needed to help those affected by Ian survive the next major storm.
We're going to help rebuild roads and bridges and public water systems. We've already allocated funding from the infrastructure law that I signed to continue making Florida's power grid more resilient than it is now.
The president says the federal government will be with Florida every step of the way.
Fox's Gernal Scott, the president is also doubling the amount of time the federal government will cover response costs. What happened at a meeting in Vienna could pump up gas prices in the U.S. as OPEC nations cut oil production by a larger than expected 2 million barrels a day. Beginning next month.
This after President Biden's trip to Saudi Arabia in July failed to secure any oil commitments to meet demand. White House spokesman John Kirby on Fox's America's Newsroom.
And it's also why the president is working so hard on clean energy solutions, because that's really the future.
Right now, AAA has regular unleaded averaging $3.83 per gallon nationwide as gas prices in Los Angeles this week top a record high of almost $6.50 per gallon.
Fox's Jeff Bonasso, the White House has said the Saudi Arabia trip wasn't about oil and says the president will release more oil from the strategic reserves next month. The rebound's over, at least for today on Wall Street, and it could have been worse. The Dow drops 42 points after pairing heavier losses. America is listening to Fox News.
From the very beginning, and every workday since, at every shift and every individual effort, we carry a common purpose, a common cause. It's a duty we proudly honor, knowing behind every product we build is your faith in us, dedicated to the craft of gun making, dedicated to your freedom, equality, security, and the promise of this great country. Smith & Wesson, empowering Americans. Learn more at smith-wesson.com.
The roar of our engines, the pump of our heartbeats, the pedal to our metal, the sparks that ignite us, the pistons that push us, the passions that drive us. From the feelings that move us to the places that pull us on the roads that unite us. With nearly 6,000 stores and over 17,000 auto care centers, Napa has America's largest network of parts and care, here to keep you firing on all cylinders.
Partly to mostly cloudy across the area for this evening with a wind advisory in effect until midnight. There will be a slight chance for an isolated possible shower as a cold front drops down out of Canada this evening, which will accelerate our wind out of the north around 20 to 40 miles an hour. It remains windy tonight and cloudy with temperatures sliding into the upper 30s, and we're stuck in the upper and mid 40s for your Thursday afternoon. A windy day with gusts up to 30 with partly cloudy skies. From the Skywatch Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Justin Storm.
Today's weather is brought to you by Summit Carbon Solutions. The ethanol industry is critical for the North Dakota economy and our farmers. Summit Carbon Solutions is opening new economic opportunities for ethanol producers and helping maintain a strong market for corn growers while generating millions of dollars in new property taxes to help local communities support our schools and hospitals. Visit summitcarbonsolutions.com to learn how this project is driving the future of agriculture in North Dakota.
Live from the PetroServe USA studio, it's the Chris Berg Show, your daily dose of truth to help set you free.
Man, what an incredibly beautiful day. Soak it all in, because as we all know, the weather, the times, they are a change. And question of the day for today, we're going to dive into this because the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber had a great conversation about this earlier today. They dubbed it Let's Talk THC. We're going to ask you, should the great state of North Dakota legalize recreational marijuana or not? I want to know from you. Number to call in. All right. 701-271-1100. 701-271-1100. Should the great state of North Dakota legalize recreational marijuana? And oh, by the way, did Minnesota sort of do it accidentally? We're going to get into that as well. Right now in Minnesota, apparently you can be selling edibles out of the trunk of your car at church. Like, I know that sounds nuts, but that came up today in the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber. And I was like, what? But you can't sell edibles at a liquor store in Minnesota. So we'll give you some details on that as well. Plus some new polling out of Minnesota as far as people saying yay to legalizing recreational marijuana. If you want to email the show, as always, studio@chrisbergshow.com. Again, studio@chrisbergshow.com. Thanks to Red Wing Shoes. They got a great event coming up. We'll tell you more about that throughout the show as well. But first, I want to start here. I want to start talking about your pocketbook before we get to the weed conversation. All right. We're going to talk about your pocketbook. You may or may not have seen the news today, but OPEC Plus says, hey, guess what? I know the gas has been pinching you, your pocketbook, and yet we're going to now cut oil production by 2 million barrels per day. 2 million barrels per day. So number one, we all know that oil prices are going to be heading back up, which means gas prices are going to be heading back up, which means it's going to be pinching your pocketbook even more. Now, two things that are really, really important to note about this that nobody else is telling you about. Number one is this. When the price of gasoline goes up, what kind of data is the Federal Reserve going to get about inflation? They are going to get data that's going to say, looks like inflation's going up even more than we thought. Now, that is horrible, horrible news. In fact, so bad that recently, and I can't even believe I'm saying this out loud, but it's true, the United Nations even came out in the last few days telling the world banks, please stop raising the rates. You're going to cause a global recession. And the worst part, they go on and talking about you're going to hurt the poorest countries the worst. So the Federal Reserve is now going to see OPEC slashes oil production. They're going to see data that shows inflation is going up even more. And the Federal Reserve, as we've heard, says, Chairman Powell said this recently, I will do whatever I need to do to get us back to 2%. Whatever I need to do, whether that means more unemployment, whether that means global recession, we are going back to 2%. So just hold on to your pocketbook because things are going to get really, really interesting as money's going to get way more expensive as they continue to raise rates. Gas is going to go up. This food's going to go up. It's bizarre and it's not good. So pay attention to that. Then the second thing that no one else is really talking about is, so when the price of oil goes up, there's a particular person on the planet that makes a lot of money. He makes a lot of money, or his country does, when the price of oil goes up. So here we are putting sanctions on Russia, which is only hurting the Russians. It's not hurting Putin. It's only hurting the layperson Russian sitting in Russia just trying to make a living in a basically communist country. And so now the price of oil is going to go up as OPEC slashes production because Biden will not do anything to go and just release what he needs to do in the Bakken and the Permian. And so now Russia is going to become even more of a piggy bank. And I'm telling you, the petrodollar is going to be going bye-bye sooner than we think because Riyadh and Moscow are getting closer and closer and closer. And so as Riyadh and Moscow continue to build this relationship, this network, and they continue to do what they're going to do with oil production and making more and more money. And I say this because I have friends that go over to the Middle East. They've been in Dubai and Riyadh and those places as of late. And we were talking recently, and this person comes from a Wall Street background, and we were bringing up the ideas in regards to this, recession potentially that could be taking place in the United States of America. And the person was like, recession? Go to Dubai. Go to Riyadh. You think the word recession is even in the back of it's not even on the tips of the lips. It's not even on the back of their mind in Riyadh and Dubai because obviously it's an oil-driven economy. And as oil continues to go up and up and up, they're just chilling and a lot of cash. So those are a couple of things I think they're really, really important for you to watch. Of course, your pocketbook being the paramount, most important piece of this data point here. And just pay attention as what Chairman Powell is going to do with the Federal Reserve and where things go from here. All right, let's get into this conversation about legalizing marijuana in the great state of North Dakota. Before we get to that, I do want to touch on a couple interesting points in Minnesota because Montana recently legalized it. It's been fantastic from a tax revenue standpoint for them. We know it's going to get legalized. It's just a matter of, is it going to happen in November or not? So what's interesting, if you look at Minnesota, obviously a lot more liberal than North Dakota, but a couple of recent polls, one from KSTP, 57% of Minnesotans say, yes, let's legalize recreational marijuana. Now, here's what's interesting. Even 52% of Republicans are like, yeah, let's just do it. It's going to happen. Give us the revenue. Let's just go. And then there was a poll from Star Tribune, NPR News, and CARE that shows that 53% of Minnesotans say, let's just get her done. You know what? Let's just make bowls legal and get her done. The only demo that was underwater, meaning not above 50%, was people 65 plus. That is the only demographic in Minnesota that was not above 50%, 65 plus. Now, what's interesting is obviously that's typically the majority of the people that get out and vote. So we'll see what happens here in November in North Dakota as far as the measure. We're going to give you some details on that in a moment. But first, there's a really interesting story coming out of Minnesota where I guess there was sort of an omnibus bill. I don't have all the details, but this omnibus bill went through. Our guest may be able to shine some more light on this than I can, but they legalized THC edibles and infused drinks, but it may have happened by accident. There's a little story here of NPR that I want to play for you based on what's going on in Minnesota.
Us now.
Hi, how's it going?
So first, tell us what exactly is now legal in Minnesota.
Okay, so edibles with THC that's derived from legally certified hemp, which contains trace amounts of THC, are now legal. But the new law permits 5 milligrams per edible of THC. So whether that's derived from hemp that doesn't have much THC or marijuana that has a lot of it, 5 milligrams is 5 milligrams, right? You know, there's no limits on how many you can take at a time, how many packages you can buy. You might be spending a little bit more to get the high you're wanting, but these will, in essence, be the same as what you could find in another state.
Right. So you can't smoke it or vape it, but you can eat it.
Right.
And so we've been seeing headlines saying this law passed accidentally. And you wrote it's possible that Minnesota's Republican-controlled Senate may not have realized that the law would legalize edibles when they signed off on it. So what exactly happened here?
Yeah, Republicans in the Senate, they have opposed recreational marijuana legalization. So yeah, this year, both chambers were looking at a broad set of like hemp industry reforms, making sure that like CBD products and Delta 8 THC products, which are a little bit different than the normal Delta 9 THC products. They wanted to make sure that they were a little bit more tightly regulated because, you know, this whole market in a lot of states is still a little bit of a Wild West at times.
Right.
So yeah, Republicans in the Senate, they did not give hearings specifically to the language that was in the House bill which would allow 5 milligrams of any type of THC in edibles per serving, and then 50 milligrams per package. Senate Republicans didn't have that in their bill, so of course they didn't give it hearings. And then when they came together at the end of session, when lawmakers are also pretty tired, by the way, and they were merging bills together, this got merged into the final bill. And at least one Senate Republican who helped oversee the merging of the two health and human services bills said he didn't realize they were doing this.
Wow. He was just like, all right, all right, all right. So there you go. In Minnesota, edibles are now legal. Obviously, this is going to get cleaned up, but apparently it is like the wild, wild west in Minnesota. We may touch more on this later in the show. Let's bring in our guest right now, David Owen. He's a spokesperson for Measure 2. Now, Measure 2 is the measure that you're going to be able to vote for in North Dakota in November that would legalize recreational marijuana. David was at the chamber event today, did an absolutely just outstanding, and I mean outstanding job laying it out. He's been a part of this movement now for several years, so he's very, very well versed in it, can explain extremely well what this measure means exactly to you and your family. So, David, again, great job this morning. You and I chatted a bit after the event, but welcome to the show as well. We appreciate the time.
Thank you for having me, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm doing really, really well, man. All right, all right, all right. Let's talk about Measure 2. So you've been in this game now for a little while. What's different between this measure versus past measures?
So what we like to say about this measure is restricted, regulated, and controlled, but legal marijuana. It comes as a measure that's very similar to House Bill 1420, which passed the conservative North Dakota State House of Representatives, but ultimately failed in the Senate. And as a result, we took that bill and we said, okay, let's clean up some things we don't like and let's put it forward to the people as a ballot initiative. So we collected our signatures, we submitted them. Now we're on the ballot and you can vote on it in roughly 30 days.
So lay this out very simply, because sometimes measures can be extremely complicated. We've got about a minute or so now, David. Obviously, we're going to keep you through the break and for the next segment. But so if I walk into the ballot box or I vote absentee, I get my ballot early, and I vote yay on Measure 2, what specifically am I voting yes for?
A yes vote represents the belief that marijuana should be legal to consume for adults over the age of 21 when purchased from a licensed distributor called a dispensary. The individual will be allowed to buy roughly an ounce of the smokable product, but there are different possession amounts contingent on the particular product that you buy. So that's what the yes vote represents. 1 ounce of possession for flower for adults over 21 from a licensed retailer, which has gone through testing and regulation by the state of North Dakota.
And I want to get into the testing and regulation piece in the next segment, because I think that's really important. As I'm sure you've seen, there's been some OD deaths here within our community. I don't know. I mean, some of these people I've heard were just out experimenting. I don't know if it was marijuana or cocaine or whatever, but marijuana, obviously you can get laced with things. And next thing you know, this person's no longer with us on this planet. So let's back up for a minute. Obviously, I'm not around weed. So 1 ounce is what does that mean exactly?
1 ounce is approximately 28 grams. So as an example,
but I mean, is it like a case of beer? Is it like 6? Like, you know what I'm saying? Is it going to last me for a month? Is it going to last me for one night?
It would be enough for probably 5 to 6 smoking sessions for an individual. So it's a personal amount for probably that 5 to 6 smoking sessions.
Okay, we're going to leave it there and keep David Owen with us into the next segment. Again, there's a lot to discuss about what does it mean from a tax standpoint. He just talked about a licensed dispensary, so it's going to be regulated, no longer on a black market. You got to presume that it's not going to get laced with stuff. What does it mean for employers and employees? And also, there are some protections for North Dakotans and the economy within this measure that could add just a whole nother opportunity if you're a business-minded, business-oriented person. If you want to email into the show, please do so. It's studio@chrisbergshow.com. Again, studio@chrisbergshow.com. As we all know, we're heading into some nasty, nasty weather here for the next few days. Things are about to change, and with that means a lot of slush and snow. So if you're someone who's got some beautiful Red Wing boots, from October 6th through October 22nd, they're going to have what's called a Tough Love event. You can come in, get your boots cleaned up, get in condition. You can buy some great boot care type of items and get a discount at 3003 Main Avenue in Fargo. That's Red Wing Shoes.
Hi, this is Jake Dahl with OnSharp. I'm here with one of our clients, Nell Ticampi of Find Equine. Nell, can you tell us about what the Find Equine app does?
The premise of the app is to give people a place to buy and sell their horses.
How was the experience working with OnSharp?
Without your encouragement, I would not have the app that I have today. You gave me the confidence to push through and actually make this project happen.
Are you happy with how the app turned out?
I'm thrilled with how the app turned out. It exceeded my expectations. I had a vision for it, and it is 10 times better than even the vision that I imagined.
Would you recommend OnSharp to other companies in need of app development?
Oh, 100%. There's a lot of companies out there, but it's really the people that you need to work with that makes or breaks it.
Thank you, Nell. We highly encourage everyone to check out the Find Equine app. And if your business is in need of custom app development, you can learn more at onsharp.com/apps.
If you've had COVID-19 or some strain of it, you've most likely experienced cognitive dysfunction, otherwise known as brain fog. Hi, I'm Dr. Oliver Siriset, and I'm here to tell you that it is real. Brain fog isn't a medical or scientific term. It's a term used by individuals to describe how they feel after COVID. Sluggish, fuzzy, downright exhausted. For some, the brain fog lasts up to 8 months. Siriset has helped others, and we can help you. Siriset, relax, rebalance, reset.
Help save our country. Support Mike Lindell in his fight for truth. Hello, friends. I'm Scott Hennon from the What's on Your Mind radio show. And my friend Mike Lindell is fearless. He never, ever gives up. His battle for election integrity. The least we can do is support him and the products of MyPillow, which are constantly under attack. The good employees of MyPillow.com are under attack. Banks cancel him. Big box stores cancel him. Walmart cancels him. This is what he endures for helping to save our country. Right now, you can get up to 66% off at MyPillow.com when you use the promo code SCOTT. 66% off. No kidding. Now is the time to go to MyPillow.com, promo code SCOTT, or call this telephone number, 800-506-9028. 800-506-9028.
Career politicians have pushed America to the point of no return. I'm Rick Becker, running for U.S. Senate, and I aim to change that. To save America, we need to end the status quo. We need someone who will put the people ahead of special interest groups, who will stand firm against burdening our children with more debt, take down bureaucrats like Dr. Fauci, and someone who will fight against the left's crazy culture war. Vote for me for U.S. Senate, and together we will fix this mess. I'm Rick Becker, running for U.S. Senate, and I approve this message.
All my friends, I'm the low rider. The low rider is a little higher.
Welcome back to the Chris Berg Show, your daily dose of truth to help set you free. Little low rider there. Who knows? Maybe we'll end up with Cheech and Chong in the state campaigning for Measure 2. We'll see what happens there. We started the show talking about the oil reduction that's going to be taking place due to OPEC, what that means as far as increasing gas prices. And I said, hey, just watch what the Federal Reserve is going to do when it comes to the rate situation, because they're going to see inflation continue to go up and up and up and up. So the question is, where do you deploy capital right now? This is not financial advice, but I think it's an important question to look at is, okay, what am I going to do to deploy capital? One thing that we've encouraged you to do, and I just cannot stress enough, especially when I talk about the petrodollar going bye-bye, is just at least get yourself educated about decentralized finance. It may not be the right fit for you. That's fine, but just understand it, because that's where things are going. Decentralized finance. You can find out more at reaper.financial. Again, reaper.financial. Reach out to Patrick there. He'll be more than happy to kind of have a conversation with you. And you may find that, hey, his Reaper token is exactly the right fit for you. All right, again, joining us right now, David Owen. He is the spokesperson on Measure 2, which is going to look to legalize recreational marijuana in the great state of North Dakota. David, so for people that are naysayers against legalizing recreational marijuana, what's your biggest reason in your perspective as to why this should get done?
For me, Chris, the biggest reason is the fact that we never got the medical program working properly. And I firmly believe it's never going to happen. For a little bit of background, we've had medical marijuana since 2016 in this state, and to this day, that program doesn't work. To this day, I receive calls from people struggling and not able to get their card. I know of a young man who's now in his mid to late 30s, who's a cancer survivor, and it took him 4 years to get his medical card. And a lot of the people who are suffering, Chris, don't have 4 years. They just don't. And then there's our veterans who can't go through the VA to get a medical card, just period. And not to mention your issues with firearms and other health insurance problems. You can be denied health insurance coverage if you admit to using medicinal marijuana. So the medical system is beyond broken, and we can't fix it. So for these people to get their medicine, we have to do recreational marijuana.
So I'm fascinated because I asked you, hey, what's the biggest reason why people should say yay? And I can appreciate where you're coming from with the medical marijuana piece. And yet you and I both know North Dakota, pretty typical, pretty conservative state fiscally. And I thought you might go the angle of, hey, Chris, look at Montana. Montana's raking in the dough right now because they just legalized it. What's your perspective from a financial standpoint? If this were to go through, what does it mean for the state of North Dakota? How could that tax revenue be utilized? And could they potentially even lower taxes here for people in North Dakota?
So that's a great question. It's important to note. We estimate that the fiscal impact could be anywhere between 5 million and 15 million in net positive per year for the state. Now, for those of you who receive your ballot, you're going to see that it's estimated to have a negative impact. But that's because when they did the calculations, they included $0 of recreational marijuana sales in their calculations. Using the straight Montana apples to apples comparison, it would be roughly 15 million in positive revenue. Using a comparison that we've developed, we believe it would be 10 million a year in positive revenue. And the conservative North Dakota Watchdog Network, which is a taxpayer advocacy group, a nonprofit, has estimated that would create a positive net of 5 million a year for the state. And what does that mean? Well, that's a substantial amount of money that we're talking about here. And we're hearing about some very big potential tax cuts that are coming in the pipeline. And they could help finance that. We're talking about potentially doing a flat income tax. We're talking about potentially doing a property tax buy down. And right now, it looks like there's money for one and almost money for the second. With marijuana legalization, there would probably be money for both.
If you're just joining us, David Owen is with us. He's the spokesperson for Measure 2. If you were to vote yay on Measure 2, you're saying yay to legalizing recreational marijuana. If you were to vote no, you're saying, hey, no thanks. I don't think we're quite ready for that here in the great state of North Dakota. David, I'm getting some texts and messages coming in. One person asked, what about growing your own? Can you grow your own with this measure?
You would be allowed to grow a very limited amount in a secure, enclosed facility. So you would be allowed to have no more than 3 plants and the products contained from them, and the product of that grow could not leave that area. And so what does that mean? That means you have enough to grow for personal consumption. You have a little bit of leeway if one of your plants dies. You're not the greatest agronomer. But at the same time, it's not enough where it can go stimulate the black market. So that's why we picked the 3-plant number.
But could you essentially have like little house parties and, hey, come on over and pay me $20 to get in the house, and we're going to just,
If someone were to do that, it would still remain a felony in the state of North Dakota. Absolutely not.
So I can't even throw a house party?
Well, you can throw a house party, but you can't do what you're implying, which is charge admission so that people could go and smoke the marijuana. That would be an indirect attempt at selling marijuana, which would still be a felony under this law.
Wow.
That is for personal consumption only.
Okay, let's get to the phone lines. If you want to call in, should North Dakota legalize recreational marijuana or not? The number is 701-271-1100. Again, 701-271-1100. John, let's go to Steve from Tioga. Steve, welcome to the show. What's your point of view?
Hi, in my younger days, I grew a little bit of marijuana. An ounce is when you put your 4 fingers together with your thumb up in the air. An ounce is about 4 fingers in a Ziploc baggie, a sandwich baggie. Okay. Now, if it takes you if it takes you that much weed that you only get 4 or 5 smoking sessions out of a bag that size, you've got some really bad weed. I mean, it's no good. I mean, and a single plant will make about a pound of flowering buds. Okay. So that would make a single person able to possess up to 3 pounds if they grew it themselves. Okay. Now, it's very hard to find workers in North Dakota, and the illegal weed makes it pretty difficult. Once you legalize weed, are the industries going to go for that, or are we still going to be taking whiz quizzes to go to work? Where I work at, you fail, you're fired. I'm a CDL driver. Oh, good grief. Try to get a driver today, and you're going to legalize weed. So the industries aren't going to go along with it because they just simply can't. I mean, the liabilities involved are too stringent,
Steve, you need your own show, the Whiz Quiz. I love that. So I'm sorry, Steve, did I cut you off? What else are you going to say?
No. For me, that's the easiest quiz to pass. I mean, I'll go do one every day. It doesn't matter to me, but it matters greatly to those who use weed. They're stuck in service positions of jobs that don't require you to take a drug test. So
all right.
In a lot of other positions, if an incident occurs, the first thing that occurs is you go down for a drug test. So it wasn't just a pre-employment; it's a continuing employment. I have a random because I'm a CDL driver. Years ago, I took a whiz quiz on the shoulder of the road in Nebraska. They drop it in a FedEx envelope and give you the tracking. They'll contact you. Trust me, they will contact you if you fail.
Steve, thanks for the phone call. I want to give David a chance.
I'll hear what he said. Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We've got just a couple minutes left, David. So if you want to respond to that, go ahead, sir.
So the 4 fingers is not an ounce, because I take my 4 fingers and I put it against a bottle of Gatorade, and it's almost halfway up the thing, and that is 20 fluid ounces. So 4 fingers is not an ounce of marijuana. On the homegrown portion, you're not going to get a pound off of each plant. That is approaching what theoretical dispensaries yield. In actuality, you're going to get considerably less, and that's before you factor in the fact that it takes time to grow the plants themselves. It can take a period of time, obviously. It doesn't just sprout up. You've got to wait. But that being said, I do appreciate his point about workplace safety, and I want to emphasize that this measure allows employers to continue to have the stringent standards they have and make the decision that best fits their business. If you're an employer that wants a zero tolerance policy, nothing will change for your business. And that isn't just according to me. That was also acknowledged at the Chamber Forum by Representative Roars Jones, who's an attorney. And that was part of why the House was able to support this version of the bill, is we have those workplace safeties in there. Last but by no means least, we talked about the labor shortage in the state. And in 2018, they estimated it was between 18 and 20,000 people. If you look at the total number of people who have had a criminal record for marijuana over the past decade, it's 21,000. There's your labor shortage right
Wow.
there. It's the people who can't find employment because of the
David?
fact that they have these criminal records.
Well, I want to have you back on, sir. We've got to leave it here. But if you want to find out more, you can do so by going to newapproachnd.org. Again, newapproachnd.org. David Owen, great work. We appreciate it. Only on the Chris Berg Show can we go from weed to coming up next. We're talking about the harvest, no pun intended, leadership prayer breakfast. Stick around. Much more coming up.
Partly to mostly cloudy across the area for this evening with a wind advisory in effect until midnight. There will be a slight chance for an isolated possible shower as a cold front drops down out of Canada this evening, which will accelerate our wind out of the north around 20 to 40 miles an hour. It remains windy tonight and cloudy with temperatures sliding into the upper 30s, and we're stuck in the upper and mid 40s for your Thursday afternoon. A windy day with gusts up to 30 with partly cloudy skies. From the Skywatch Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Justin Storm.
My part-time service in the Army National Guard makes it possible for me to be more for the community I call home. I'm a better neighbor because my service has taught me how important it is to be a team player. My training helps me in my classes when I give attention to detail to the task at hand. My service also allows me to be there for my community in ways others can't. I help my hometown recover after nature strikes. My service in the Army National Guard allows me to keep my country and those I care about safe from threats. I also work with a network of professionals that help me succeed. Also, the Army National Guard's education benefits make getting a higher education a reality. Being an Army National Guard soldier makes living and serving in my community more rewarding every day. Learn more about how you too can live and serve part-time close to home by visiting NationalGuard.com.
Sponsored by the North Dakota Army National Guard. Aired by the North Dakota Broadcasters Association at this station.
Hi, Lacey here with Precision Concrete Cutters. You've heard our ads about egress windows. They add sunlight, they provide an escape and add value to your home. All true, but I'd like to let you in on a little secret. You can add an egress window anywhere, even if there's no existing window. I know this because at Precision Concrete Cutters, we specialize in egress window installation and replacement. Precision Concrete Cutters, 701-280-7038. That's 280-7038.
I'm John Hoven, candidate for the U.S. Senate, and I approve this message.
Farmers and ranchers in North Dakota help feed and fuel the world, and John Hoven's been right there with us.
As a leader on the Senate Ag Committee, John will be writing the next farm bill.
And John's made sure that crop insurance, disaster assistance, and emergency livestock relief were available when we needed them most.
Bottom line, no one works harder for North Dakota farmers and ranchers than John Hoven.
John Hoven works for North Dakota. Paid for by Hoven for Senate.
Hey, it's Scott Hannon. Our family absolutely loves the full water treatment system we put in our home from Lindsay Echo Water. We live in a flood zone. We have the best ag land in the country. The river floods over, and on that land, the water recedes, and the trace elements of those herbicides go into our water, unless you have a full water treatment system like I do from Lindsay Echo Water Systems. Cooking is way better, too. Same with coffee. Go to lindsayEchoWater.com for details or call 218-233-8655, 218-233-8655.
Is your precious jewelry in need of some TLC? At Wimmers, we believe in love. Loving your old jewelry, that is, so you'll wear it every day. Perhaps you have an item that needs a little repair, an update to match your style, a ring you'd like to convert to a pendant. Bring your beloved well-worn jewelry to Wimmers, and we'll assist you in reimagining an updated version or give it a brand new look. Fall in love with those special pieces all over again. Wimmers Diamonds. Repair, reimagine, restyle.
Employers, does the competitive job market have you down? Now more than ever, make certain your pay and benefits are competitive, and High Road Partners can help. High Road Partners is a full-service employee benefits brokerage and HR firm serving small businesses in the region, helping you design a strategy to attract and retain talented employees, locally owned and operated. Let's succeed together. Visit highroadpartners.com today. highroadpartners.com.
There's a black man with a black cat.
Welcome back to the Chris Berg Show, your daily dose of truth. Truth to help set you free. As I said, heading to the break, only here can we go about talk about legalizing weed. And now we're going to discuss really an outstanding event. It is the Harvest Leadership Prayer Breakfast. It's happening on Saturday, October 15th. I wanted to bring in a special guest to talk about it. I went last year, and it was really fascinating because it was a couple NDSU football player guys, I think maybe 3 or 4. But when you hear the story, remember when NDSU had all those challenges and issues? I mean, I wasn't here then, but I guess guys were getting arrested all the time, and I've heard, taking stuff from different stores. It was the stories were nuts. But there was a very small core group of guys that started turning their lives over to the Lord. And then one of them started to have Bible study. Then they started going out and doing prayer at the 50-yard line. And it's incredible when you look at the success of the NDSU Bison football team. I think you can tie it right back to when they started making a commitment to Christ. I mean, it was the timing was absolutely incredible and epic and fantastic to see if you're a believer. So we got a special guest in studio to talk about. If he wants to touch on that, that would be great to share more of that story because I probably forgot some of it, but also about they have a great guest coming in this year, again, on Saturday, October 15th. It's the Speaker of the House for just a couple more months, it sounds like, Representative Kim Koppelman. Welcome to the show. It's great to see you, sir.
Thanks, Chris. Good to be with you.
So do you remember that story about the NDSU football team and
Absolutely.
just how the timing was incredible, right? Do you want to maybe clean up what I just shared?
No, you summarized it very well. And, it's a story that we just felt needed to be told. And some people knew about it, but not enough. And we thought, what a great focus for our community. And folks were willing to kind of come in and tell the story and highlight it. And we thought it was very timely
What
and
stood
very
out
important.
the most to you from that story about the Bison football team?
I think it's priorities. I think the guys that the one gentleman that Preston, who was one of the gentlemen that spoke, was one of the roughest, toughest, wildest members of the team. And when he met the Lord, as you said, his life changed in an instant, and it was noticed. In fact, Coach Bowl at the time had to be called back from a recruiting trip. They said Preston's lost his mind because his personality changed so much. And so I think it's an issue of, football is important to all those guys, obviously, all important to all of us in this community. But what's really important to the ones that have their focus right, let's say, is higher power and higher things in life and their commitment to God.
You just reminded me of a great story that he shared, and maybe you'll remember the specifics. Do you remember he was driving in his truck and the clock somehow went to 61, and he called up his buddy, and do you remember this? And he's like,
I don't remember that part.
He was like, dude, my clock just went to 61. Have you ever seen a clock say 61? And they're like all kind of freaking out. And then the guy he called was sort of his spiritual mentor. And they're like, I don't remember the exact scripture. It was check out Isaiah 61. And it was exactly where he was at in his life. Do you remember this at all now?
I don't remember that part of the story,
do you
but
have
that's
the video
fantastic.
Of that?
We have one that was made that I don't have in my hands yet. We're going to get that corrected, but we actually paid someone to come and do a video. So
you got to get that out. The story was amazing.
And we want to share that on our, and it's a good segue because we want to share that on our Facebook page and also on our website. So the Facebook page, which will be handy for the folks interested in this year's event, is just look for Harvest Leadership Prayer Breakfast on Facebook. The web page, the website is prayerbreakfast.net. That's pretty easy to remember. And let's talk about this year. We've got an exciting speaker coming in.
All right, let's do that. I don't know if I'm still done with last year. Like last year, now I'm reliving it. It's impacted me so much that I'm like, wait a second, I want to stay on last year for a little while.
Which is great. And you said it, you warned me that our time is limited, and that's why. But otherwise, I'd be happy to reminisce about that. But it's important what you've illustrated, and you were there last year for the first time. You said there are people that have been coming back to this year after year for decades. And it really started back in about 1978, believe it or not, by a gentleman named Art Grimstead, who many in this community has gone on to be with the Lord years ago now, but had a great impact on the lives of many, including me, in this community, and organized men's Bible studies. He was a professor at Concordia College and a pastor, and started the other one who really helped start it was Howard Dahl, who is a prominent businessman in the community, as many people know. And so it's been going on for many years, not every year consecutively, but we decided to resurrect it about 10 years ago. 9 years ago, the very first breakfast after we did that, our speaker was a man named David Barton. And he was so popular, people said, we're almost demanding, bring him back next year. And we thought, well, we don't want to do that back to back. But we had some phenomenal speakers over the years. I won't, if I start naming them, I'll forget a lot of good ones. But one that comes to mind is actually a friend of mine named Brian Birdwell, who was a state senator in the state of Texas. But he was a colonel at the Pentagon on 9/11. And the plane went in right at his office. The only reason he's alive is that he was down the hall at the men's room. He said it's nothing heroic. Came back. He was so badly burned. Everyone that he worked with died. He was so badly burned that it took years and years of surgeries to restore him. And his story was so poignant. I had to take him to the airport to catch a plane to leave town, but people said I could have listened to him for another 2 hours. I mean, he was just unbelievable. So we try to get speakers that are dynamic, that have a message that people want to hear. And David Barton's specialty is he's a historian. I think he's one of the finest historians in the nation. And he really has focused in his academic work on the role that faith played in our founding. And especially in this day and age, with all the revisionist history we hear and people twisting things about our nation's history, what better time to have someone set the record straight? And so we're excited to have David come back. And he has a ministry called Wall Builders in Aledo, Texas, a little town near Fort Worth, Texas. He does a legislative conference every year, and I've attended that. I'm attending again this year and have done it several times. I've spoken at it. I've been honored to be asked by him to be one of his guest speakers. So we're returning the favor, and he's coming here. And people that are familiar with him, they just light up when they hear that David Barton is coming. But a lot of folks don't know who he is. So that's why we're spreading the word and encouraging people to come. And it's October 15th. So a week from Saturday. It's coming up pretty quickly, about 10 days away. And which is, by the way, speaking of the Bison, a Bison home game. So if you're coming to town for the game or plan your day around that, come a little early and do the prayer breakfast. It's at the Holiday Inn in Fargo, 9 o'clock in the morning. It'll usually go about an hour and a half. So 9 o'clock, we'll get you out of there by 10:30, 10:45, something like that. We have some music. Kathy Brecky, who a lot of people are familiar with, is going to be providing music this year. We're excited about that. And this is a very non-denominational, inclusive event. So we invite folks, whatever your spiritual journey is, or if you don't have one and you're scratching your head and thinking, hey, maybe I should pay a little more attention. I love what somebody said one time, there's no such thing as an atheist. When the ground shakes, you look up. And, a lot of folks have a very strong spiritual life and a strong relationship with the Lord, and others really haven't found that yet, or maybe aren't interested. But I encourage anyone, anywhere along that path, to come.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with David Barton, by the way, if you're just joining us, Representative Kim Koppelman is with us in studio. Coming up on Saturday, October 15th, it's called the Harvest Leadership Prayer Breakfast. Really, really great event. But David Barton, many of you may recognize it if you think back in the day, probably like around 2008, 2009. He was on the Glenn Beck show a lot.
Yep.
I mean, a lot. Yep. Because, Glenn Beck then was sort of in this restoration of the Constitution and where the country was going, which clearly we need now more than ever. And so you really will have a beautiful treat if you come and hear from David Barton. He'll talk about the roots of the nation, as Representative Koppelman just mentioned, but really how that roots, and I believe the restoration, is us turning back to the Lord. Like it's amazing, Kim, right now. I don't know if you're in BSF or ever heard of it, but like we're studying Kings and Chronicles right now, and it's just so clear how do I even say this? How, we all have this book, the Bible. We see the patterns of when kings and leaders turn their face from the Lord. And I don't know if it's ever been more evident just how much we're turning our face than right now.
Isn't that true? And, that the fact that God is faithful is also a message throughout the Bible, throughout history. And I actually spoke to David yesterday, and I said, what are you going to kind of focus on? And he said, well, it's a prayer breakfast. He said, I'm going to talk about prayer and how God has answered prayer throughout the ages. So I'm sure there'll be a lot more, but I mean, that's one of the things, in the famous verse in Chronicles, if my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways, I will forgive their sin.
Their land, yeah.
Land, and I don't know that that's his focus, but I mean, it's clear
I
throughout,
hope so.
I mean, that particular passage, but maybe. And it's clear throughout history that God answers prayer both in our personal lives, but also, as you alluded to, in the lives of nations. And so where's our country going? And what are our roots? And do we need to get back to them? All those questions, I think, will be answered.
Yeah, really. If you haven't studied Kings and or Chronicles, I would encourage you to do so, because it's got a lot of analogous situations to what we're dealing with right now as a nation, and just how kings would, turn their hearts from the Lord and have a bunch of idols. And next thing you know, God's like, nah, that's not how this goes down. So I'm going to go and just start taking our nation. So
another thing,
I've got 30 seconds left.
Well, another thing is very interesting about
But how can people go? What do they need to do to get tickets?
Go to prayerbreakfast.net. If you want to go to the website, go to Eventbrite and look for Harvest Leadership Prayer Breakfast. You can buy tickets right there. If you want to go in town, you can go to Hurley's down in South University Drive. They have tickets available. You can go to Facebook to Harvest Leadership Prayer Breakfast on Facebook. If you happen to know one of the members of the VCLA board, the Valley Christian Leadership Association, we have them in our pockets, so you can get them there as well. But, it's interesting. When we talk about this historically, I think the important thing is people gathering together from different walks of life, different parts of the country, business people, farmers, people from all walks of life coming together. And it doesn't matter what denominational label you wear, but come join us.
Coming out on Saturday. And when we come back, did you see what happened last night? Incredible. History.
Did you ever wake up in the morning and wonder,
where's my lottery ticket? Or wait, did I get one?
Well, then it's time you tried Pick and Click with the North Dakota Lottery. With Pick and Click Online Play, never worry about a lost ticket or miss a drawing again. Tickets are automatically checked and you're notified of any winnings.
Woohoo! I won! What a game changer.
Visit lottery.md.gov to get started with Pick and Click today. The North Dakota Lottery. Imagine the possibilities.
I'm Kelly Armstrong, candidate for Congress, and I approve this message. Over the last 4 years, I've logged over 80,000 miles traveling our state. We do things right in North Dakota. And everywhere I go, I hear the same thing. North Dakotans want less government and more freedom. That's why in Washington, I fight against the Biden administration's reckless spending, oppose tax increases, and work to keep the federal government out of our lives. And why I'm driven to keep fighting for North Dakota.
Paid for by Armstrong for Congress.
Both Mike Huckabee and Donald Trump agree you need to read Dick Morris's new book. It's called The Return, and it's already topping bestseller lists. Former President Trump says it's a great book and urges you to get it. And Mike Huckabee recently urged every American to read The Return. In The Return, Dick Morris explains why Trump, not DeSantis, must be the candidate in 2024. He even reveals the moves Hillary Clinton is taking to prepare to run against Trump. The Return reveals Trump's secret plan to win. Newsmax says The Return is the political book of the year. The elections are coming soon. Find out why everyone is getting The Return. An Amazon #1 bestseller. Get Dick Morris's The Return in bookstores everywhere, or check out the free offer from Newsmax and save $28. Just call 800-NEWSMAX. That's 800-NEWSMAX. Or go to thereturn911.com to get your copy today. Thereturn911.com.
Do you have money in the bank or the stock market? Do you check the balance often? Why wouldn't you do the same for your biggest asset, your home? If you want to know right now what you could sell your home for in this hot market, go to fargohomevalues.com. Type in any address and find out instantly. You might be surprised how much you could get for your home. Again, that website is fargohomevalues.com, or call me, John Nosala, for a personal valuation. Find out more at jkpropertypartners.com.
All season long, we've got the coaches, players, and information you want, and everything you need to know about the games we're covering, and especially those we aren't. The region's only radio high school preview show. Welcome to the Blitz. Brought to you every week on these stations by Dakota Underground Company of Fargo, Gateway Chevrolet, Dakota Refrigeration, Weldon's Tire Service, and Prairie Supply. Friday nights at 6. Tune in for the Blitz.
All you've got is this moment. 21st century's yesterday. You can care all you want.
Welcome back to the Chris Berg Show, the fastest hour in radio. Whoosh, time flies when you are having fun. All right. Or talking about legalizing recreational marijuana. We're coming to you live from the PetroServe USA studio. We just told you a moment ago, OPEC is going to be slashing production by 2 million barrels a day. You and I both know what that means. Gas prices are going up. PetroServe USA does the best they can, obviously, to keep those prices down. So as you're out and about, please stop into your local PetroServe USA, pick up some gas and some goodies, especially that 4 for $4. Now that the prices of everything else are going up, what does PetroServe USA do? They keep it right at $4, where you get a pizza, some cookies, and a soda. Some great comments coming in. Lisa says this: hey, I want a future for my son in regards to should we legalize marijuana or not. She says, I want a future for my son. I don't want him growing up in a drug culture and all that comes with that. And yes, that will come with the legalization of this drug. I've lived in places like that. They are not better off because they made it, quote unquote, okay. Drug culture does nothing but destroy lives. She is a hard no when it comes to Measure 2. So again, if you're just joining us, Measure 2 is going to be on the ballot November 8th, which, gosh, that is, I think I saw today, 33 days away. We are just 33 days away from the election. Like, holy cow, that is just shocking to me. And many people now are going to be beginning to vote absentee. You can vote early, as you know, in North Dakota. And so when you get to Measure 2, if you were to vote yes, you're saying, hey, I'm okay with legalizing recreational marijuana in the state. There's going to be regulations on it. You got to get it from a dispensary. It's not going to be laced there. I mean, so there's obviously regulations entailed there. And if you were to vote no on Measure 2, you're saying no to legalizing recreational marijuana in the great state of North Dakota. All right, I mentioned before the break, Last night, history was made. And it's a historical event that matters to you and me, especially right here in our community. And this is something that I want to play because it is historical, and yet it's hard to play because it's historical. If you haven't heard, here it is. Volume.
High fly ball, deep left. There it goes, soaring into history. He's done it. He has done it. 62. Aaron Judge is the American League single-season home run leader. The AL King. Case closed.
Wow. Aaron Judge knocks one out, number 62 last night to beat our beloved Roger Maris. So congratulations to Aaron Judge, but boy, it's hard to see Roger Maris's record be broken from 1961. Although I got to say, if you've not seen Aaron Judge, holy cow, the dude is a beast. He's like 6'7", and he's got a 17 size shoe. I mean, he's just ginormous and just dropping bombs all season long. All right, let's get to one last phone call before we have to wrap up the show. Let's go to line one. Tom, welcome to the show. What's your point of view, sir?
I guess my point of view is there's a lot of yeses and a lot of no's about the legalization of marijuana. But, they say it might be a gateway drug or whatever, but has anybody looked at how many people have died from just alcohol? And alcohol is a drug. So, I don't remember the last time going to a party and getting, I don't smoke, but, to go smoke and then want to go to the liquor store to buy more weed, you just sit down and have a snack.
Tom, you bring up a really good point, and we'll have to have David Owen back because I remember in the past he brought this conversation up where he's like, look, how many times do you see people, and Tom, thanks for the phone call, how many times do you see people that go out, they get inebriated with alcohol, and the next thing you know, they become violent or things take place that nobody wants to see happen, whereas, how many times, number one, have you seen anybody OD from marijuana? Never. How many times do you see somebody get violent or aggressive when they're on marijuana? I would venture to say close to never, right? Because most of the time people just want to chill out, like he said, order some pizza and have some Doritos or whatever they want to do. So it's an interesting dynamic. And I can appreciate what Lisa said about the drug culture. Tom talked about the gateway drug, but then again, so is alcohol. And when you look back to the Prohibition situation, what took place with Prohibition, which, by the way, if you haven't seen the documentary, I don't really necessarily love the documentary guy, but if you haven't seen the documentary on Prohibition, I would encourage you to check it out because it led to some really fascinating things within America. Like, it was so much more than just getting rid of alcohol and then bringing it back and what it meant from taxes and then, income taxes and the Federal Reserve, like just a really, really fascinating piece. So tomorrow already, gosh, I can't believe this. What is happening? It's Thursday already, which means it's Friday Eve. Sounds like the weather's about to change. We'll give you an update on the weather tomorrow on the show, what you can expect, because as things continue to get colder and colder and colder. Plus, on Thursday, we have our Williston Economic Development Update. On Friday, I was in Williston to MC an event that was absolutely incredible. It was like the Oscars for entrepreneurs, but better. So we'll talk about that tomorrow and much, much more right here on The Chris Berg Show. You can email us 24/7, studio@chrisbergshow.com. Again, studio@chrisbergshow.com. I love you. Have a great, happy hump day. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 p.m.